The most advanced form of intelligence is not knowing how to grow, it's knowing when growth has reached its limits. Every natural system understands this. Growth occurs, stabilizes, and then gives way to renewal. Forests stop expanding when density becomes destructive. Rivers change course when pressure becomes unsustainable. Seasons end, not because they fail, but because continuation would undermine balance. Nature does not cling to what is finished. It allows endings. Human beings increasingly do the opposite. You live in a culture that treats expansion as an unquestioned good. More output is assumed to mean progress. More ambition is assumed to mean clarity. More effort is assumed to mean virtue. The idea of stopping, or saying this is enough, is quietly framed as weakness or failure. But intelligent systems do not expand endlessly. They preserve their capacity to adapt. Enoughness is the skill of recognizing when continuation no longer strengthens the system. It is the ability to perceive limits not as constraints, but as signals that a phase has completed its work. The skill has largely disappeared. Modern life trains you to continue rather than to evaluate. You are taught how to push further, but not how to ask whether further still makes sense. As a result, many people live inside lives they no longer want, not because they choose them, but because they never learned how to end them. This is where freedom begins to erode. When you cannot say enough to a job, a pace, a way of living, or a version of yourself that no longer fits, your creativity collapses. Not because you lack ideas, because your creativity requires space. It requires the ability to stop repeating what already exists. Nature understands this intuitively. Nothing new emerges without an ending. A forest clears before it regenerates. Winter strips the landscape so that growth can return with intelligence rather than excess. When you refuse to let something end, you remove the conditions for renewal. Many people say they want freedom, but what they mean is relief. True freedom is the ability to choose differently. That ability disappears when momentum replaces judgment. You continue working in ways that drain you. You continue consuming information that dulls your thinking. You continue maintaining identities that no longer feel truthful. Not because these things still serve you, but because stopping would require you to confront uncertainty. Enoughness requires that confrontation. It's not passive, it's precise. It demands that you observe the effects of continuation honestly, without romanticizing effort or mistaking endurance for wisdom. A growth-obsessed culture praises persistence, even when persistence becomes irrational. It rewards resilience while ignoring the difference between strengths and unnecessary strains. It encourages you to push past limits that exist for a reason. Enoughness corrects this distortion. It introduces discernment into ambition. It asks not can this continue, but should it? It recognizes diminishing returns, the point at which more work reduces clarity, more stimulation fragments attention, and more ambition constricts rather than expands possibility. This is why knowing when to stop is advanced intelligence. Stopping preserves energy. Stopping restores perspective. Stopping creates the space in which creativity can re-enter. What cannot stop cannot adapt. What cannot end cannot renew. What cannot say enough eventually loses the freedom to choose at all. Enoughness is not about having less. It's about reclaiming the ability to change direction. And until you can say enough to what no longer aligns, no longer nourishes, no longer supports life, growth will continue, but freedom will not. So sit with this message